quick little synopsis of Chapter 8, Lesson 5, using the distributive property. Realistically, in this lesson, though, we're using the distributive property to go backwards. We're finding, as it says, the greatest common factor of the terms. So there's a couple examples there, but I'm going to dive right in here. In this example right here, I've got 21xy minus 18x squared. The first and the easiest part is identifying the greatest common factor in those two coefficients, 21 and 18. What can go into both of them, and hopefully you know, is 3. Then I look and see what variables that are contained by both terms, and there really is only one. There's only one x here. There's two x's there, but I have to be able to take it out of both of them. So 1x there, and then there's a y in here, but there's no y in there. So this is all I can take out. Now when I take it out, I factor it out. That means I'm going to divide each term by 3x. If I divide 21xy by 3x, I'm going to get 7y, because 21 divided by 3 is 7, and xy divided by x is just y. I'm going to do that same thing for the negative 18x squared. It's going to be negative 6, and then I only took out one of the x's, so that leaves another x. And that is completely factored. That's a binomial. So I took out a monomial, and I still have a binomial inside. Okay, let's look at the second one. We're looking at a trinomial here. First looking at 64, 32, and 8. All right. I always check the smallest number. Can I divide them both by 8? The answer to that is yes. So I'm going to take out an 8. Now let's look at our variables. I have r's and s's in both of them. But how many r's do I have in all? 3, 2, 2. So I can take out 2 from each. So r squared. Then I have just one s here, and as long as I just have one s in the other ones, I can take out one s. So I've got my monomial that I'm going to factor out. I'm going to divide each term by that 8r squared s. If I do that, 64 divided by 8 is 8. R cubed divided by r squared is r, and s divided by s is gone. All right, 32 divided by 8 is 4. R squared and r squared, which means r is gone, and I take out one of the s's, so I got s squared. Now this last one, if I divide by 8, that 8 is gone, and so is the r squared. All I have left is s. If you choose to write 1s, that would be okay, but you do not have to. And there you go. It's divided. All right, moving on to the second part. Using the distributive property to factor polynomials for 4 or more terms. When we have 3 terms, our only option is to take out a common factor. But if we have 4 terms, we can actually regroup them. And so we can group them by things they have in common and regroup them. And there's an example which may not look super friendly, so let's just dive in. On the back of that first page, see here we have a quad. I guess there's a term for it. There's 4 terms in that polynomial. I'm going to look really first. This first 2, I could take out an x here, and in this second 2, I could take out a negative 4. So out of this first 2 terms, I'm going to take out an x, and I get 2x plus 1. Careful there. Now if I take out a negative 4 out of these 2, I'm going to get a positive 2x plus 1. Now you'll notice I actually have a common factor between the 2 of them. So if I take that out, I got 2x plus 1. What I am left with is x minus 4. And I can put that second. It's kind of cool. Now, if you wanted to multiply that out, you can, and then you will find out you will get the same thing. Now, if I chose to write x minus 4 first, and then 2x plus 1, that would be fine. Okay, so moving on, let's try this one in the box. All right, we have 4QR plus 8R and 3Q plus 6. I'll notice in my first two I can take out an R. I can actually take out a 4 as well. And in my last two, I only have one Q there. I could take out just a 3. So let's try that. So I'm going to group them, just leave them as they are. I don't have to move them around. We could if we wanted to. So I'm going to take out a 4R. If I do that, I'm left with Q plus 2. In the back half, those back two, if I take out a 3, I'm left with, again, Q plus 2, which is nice because now you see that is what both of my terms have in common. So I can factor out a Q plus 2, and what I'm left with is 4R plus 3. Let's move on. Right here, you may have to move your variables around. Take this one, for example, or we can move my terms around, excuse me. If I take out here 3A, I get A minus 1. And if I take out a negative 4 here, I'm going to get a negative 1 plus A, which is I can rewrite that as the same thing. It's the additive inverses. That's what we're doing here. So you can identify the fact that we have an A minus 1 and then 3A minus 4. Last one we're going to do on this. Take a look at our first one. It's the only two that have an M in common, so I'm going to go ahead and leave them alone. I'm going to take out a 2 and an M and get K minus 6. Now, in order to get K minus 6 here, I have to take out a negative 7. A negative 7 makes this positive K and this a negative 6. So now if I chose to write 2M minus 7 first and K minus 6 second, that would be, 6. That would be all right. All right, so you are going to work on just factoring today. We're going to come back tomorrow and we're going to talk about after we factor, we move on to solving, but today we're just practicing factoring. If we have trinomials, we're taking something out of all of them. If we have 4 terms, we will probably look to group them. All right? Your punchline worksheet will be your assignment. Green.